So let's get started. Clearly interesting times of our lives. What I would like you to do right now is try not to have any distractions around you because this is your thinking time. This is really to reflect on what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the world out there, and how the landscape is shifting. So make sure you have pen, paper ready just for your questions and also some of the reminders that you might get from the discussion and also, what you might see on your screen. Also, just to remind you and to set your expectations, hopefully, what we will be sharing today is not rocket science. It's not something that you've never thought about or it has not crossed your mind. But remember, sometimes when you're in the midst of so much of action, so much of drama, and so much of thriller, things get missed out. So it's going through the fundamentals, the basics, systematically, properly, and really identifying what needs to be done in your private life, what needs to be done in your business life. So it's more of that session. So we all know about what's happening with the virus situation, and there are concerns, and I have consciously written there that there are some new opportunities as well. So let's go through this. Another request, just take a deep breath right now, okay? Just take a deep breath, sit back, relax, and let your brain work, and let's see what's the best we can do in this situation. So if you're good with that, just click again on the hand icon so I know we are all set and we are ready to crack on. Yeah? Cool. Awesome. So let's move forward. Now, the three things that we will be focusing on today is the health, business, and mindset. And as I said, I am not an expert in terms of what's happening with the virus, research, what you should be exactly doing in terms of your health. Whatever I will be sharing with you on the health front, especially, is the information that's there in the public domain, and it's very rapidly evolving. And what's really required here for all of us on the call is to get more and more educated with what's happening and what are the recent developments. Now, as I said, I'm sure you're taking quite a few precautions at your own end. If you are not familiar about how this virus is different from flu, or you're still in that mindset of saying, oh yeah, it's just flu and it's going to get, pass and it's fine, it's different purely because our body does not have the immunity for this particular virus, which is COVID-19, and that's why the health risks are significant. Now, I'm sure, as I said, you're following what's happening out there. Now, let's just look at the fundamentals. As I said, I'm just going to touch upon the requirements that you need to pay attention to. So the first thing, as we know, is the hygiene side of things, which I know, speaking to quite a few of you, that you are taking full measures on that, making sure that you have the essentials in your office, in your personal life, and your family is being educated, your team is being educated on the hygiene matters. Social distancing is very important. This is where I'm not sensing enough consensus or seriousness. There are clients, there are people who are still taking it very lightly, which I think is changing now with every passing day. But social distancing is absolutely required. And some of you might come across the flattening of the curve phenomenon, which is what the governments are trying to do, which I will show you in my next slide. But again, you might have heard that UK government and has talked about, restraining oneself from the malls, from pubs, from all the public spaces possible. In fact, we have clients in Kuwait, and over there, the government is taking even stricter measures. They are literally restricted in their household, and the economies and the governments are trying to buy time for themselves, actually delay the whole thing. Now, there is another distinction that I want you to make for yourself, which I think, at least personally, I've digested this information properly, is that 80% of us on the call have serious chances of getting this virus, actually getting infected. Now, that's how it is. The point is, our body is strong enough and has got immunity to fight this virus. But sometimes the body and immunity system goes into overdrive. And when that happens, then people with underlying health risks actually are at a serious risk of developing other issues like multi-organ failures or kidney problems or lung issues. And that's what we need to be mindful of, that we cannot most probably protect ourselves from this virus. There is a good chance of us getting infected. The only thing that we're trying to do is to make sure that our immunity is strong, and we are trying to delay or flatten the curve as much as possible so we can get the medical support that's required. And just in case, if someone is infected or is positive virus, then yes, the whole idea of 7 days or 14 days of social distancing allows the body to fight it back, and actually restore the balance. So its idea is not to, again, to panic or to really get scared of this virus. It's, yes, like another flu virus, but because body does not have the immunity, it has to figure out its way to fight this virus and hopefully, as I said, restore the balance without getting into overdrive or over inflammation of organs. I've also shown you the link on the slide right now. It's a great link to go through because it just helps you understand how coronavirus impacts the body and what body does in response. And as I said, every body is different, will have its own mechanisms of fighting it, or responding to it. Now, the other thing is self-monitoring. There are some very clear symptoms which are being talked about. And again, just being aware and not taking things lightly or casually, just monitoring yourself. There are some exercises which are there on the internet. I don't really want to talk about it because they're not fully verified, but just for you to monitor, saying, is there any temperature or the dry cough or joints pain? There are some very common symptoms which are being talked about. Just make sure you're aware of it and talk about this to your family and to your team. More we are educated, more we are aware, we can preempt this. Or at least do something about it. And also there are new societal norms for the time being. And as I'm saying, hopefully things will restore, or there'll be new norms, you never know, but make sure you are respectful of other people and their health, and following those new norms in terms of how you sneeze or how you cough, and obviously avoiding any physical contacts, just being more mindful of not putting yourself to risk and not putting others to risk. So again, remember guys, as we are discussing, there are lots of people on the call. If you have any burning questions, any thoughts, please put that in the chat box, in the question box, and we will take it up towards the end of this presentation. We might have answers, all of us on the call together, or we might not, but at least it's good to put your concerns out there in the open. So that's on the health front, and this is the flattening of the curve, which is being very much talked about, and this is what exactly governments are trying to do. So if you have not seen this, basically what we're saying is that there is a good chance of infections happening, and if there are no measures, no precautions being put in place, then it will put pressure on the NHS or on the medical system, and will lead to some serious consequences and deaths possibly, and many more deaths. But again, if we can try to flatten the curve, just buying the time through social distancing and through other measures, then it will reduce peak burden on hospitals and infrastructure. So that's what we're trying to do. That's we, as in the literally at global level, that's what everyone is trying to do. So till the time you're aware of why, for example, people need to work in a certain way, or home working is actually better, or for you to social distance yourself from others is purely for these reasons. But the chances of infection, literally Germany is talking about 70%, up to 70%, UK is talking about up to 80% of the population getting infected, and it will recover. People will fight back because that's how bodies are made. So I hope that clarifies a little bit more, or at least confirms what you have been reading about. But as I said, if there's something which is fundamentally wrong in terms of what we are talking about here, as in I'm talking about here, or there's new information that you have which is verified and validated, please do share. So moving on to business front, and again, there are many factors involved here, but before I get into the business side of things as to what's happening on team front or clients or suppliers, I think it makes sense for us to just look at what has recently happened on the budget front. And again, I'm sure you have reviewed the budget because quite a few announcements have been made in that, again, in terms of measures and support. And if you have not, then our objective is in the next few slides just to give you an update, so that you're aware and you know what actions need to be taken. So I will just switch my presentation and go to UK budget, and will request Amol to go through these slides so that you're completely on top of it, at least the main points. Amol.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining. I've just collated a few things on the UK budget. So obviously there's been enough news outside in terms of all the announcements that have been made. I've picked some things which I think are relevant for all of you. So for most business owners. So those are really the only key changes that I'm going to be talking about. If there is anything that you think is especially pertaining to you, in my slides or outside, just put it in the chat box, because if it's in the chat box, I can just read it out and it might be useful for someone else also. So on the business tax, Key changes that have happened. The most important thing that really everyone is talking about is that entrepreneurs relief limit has been reduced to 1 million. The entrepreneurs relief comes in when you're trying to sell your business. So there's usually a big incentive for business owners to keeping cash in the business, because when you do sell the business, you get the whole money out at 10%. And that used to be true till about 10 million. It's been reduced down to 1 million, and this is a lifetime limit, which means the first million is going to be taxed at 10%. After that, it's going to be taxed at 20%. So effectively 4 points. I'm just talking through the budget. The first 4 points I've picked up are on business tax. So entrepreneurs tax release has been reduced. Now this has a twofold effect. One is for business owners who are looking to sell, they're going to make less money in terms of tax relief when they actually sell. Equally, if you're looking to buy a business or you're looking to invest, then there's less of an incentive for people to hoard cash and hoard money in their businesses and use that as a reason to exit. So it's becoming easier for people to start saying, well, actually, what's the point of collecting money in my business? Let me just keep taking it out and using it. The other things, most of you, I think, are already aware of the R&D tax credit. The amount of tax credit that is available has been increased from 12% to 13%. If you are not already aware of R&D tax credit, just be in touch with us later on. This is something, if you are doing research and development, that you should be accessing. The employment allowance has been increased to 4,000. Again, remember, I've picked some of these things because they give you immediate cash upside or downside. The employment allowance is something everyone should be getting. Each company can potentially, if you have employees, can claim the employment allowance. It is effectively a set off against your national insurance. Your payroll department should be able to figure it out. You just have to reconfirm every year that you're still eligible. Usually, if you have more than one companies, then you can claim, this is per company, so you claim it in two companies if you have two different companies set up. And we've talked in the past, most of you would probably be aware that there are structures in which you can have different parts of your company and different parts of your businesses and different entities. So that just doubles up the employment allowance available to you. The corporation tax was actually expected to come down. That has not come down. So that's a little bit of negative news in terms of what's happening in the budget. Obviously, a lot of the increases that have been given, there's a lot of takeaway also. So corporation tax has been one of those takeaways, not gifts. On the personal front, I just wanted to touch on a few things, just so we are aware. If we are not already doing it, these things make it more interesting. There is something called an ISA. Most of you would be aware. This is one of the key products that is available to do tax-free savings. And there is a junior ISA. If you don't already have it for your children, you should set up a junior ISA. Effectively, all your money is tax-free, and they've doubled the amount of money you can put into it every year. So if you start a junior ISA for your child when he's 8 years old and start putting 9,000 a year, by the time they're 18, they'll have 90,000, all tax-free, and completely available to them to spend. So it's a really good product. The national insurance threshold has been increased. This has a benefit. If you're only, as a business owner, if you're only taking the minimum available, then you get a little bit more. If you take most of your money through dividends and through the salary, you only take a little bit, then that threshold has increased to 9.5. This obviously also affects employees. There's been a few changes in the sick pay, which effectively what sick pay changes are. They've allowed people to start claiming quite easily if they are isolated because of coronavirus, and they've also given businesses an ability to claim for sick pay immediately. So it works on both ways, and this is specifically done for coronavirus. The pension allowance, if you are, most of you would probably be managing your tax affairs, so you're not taking out more than 110,000 in terms of salary. That's the pension allowance used to start tapering. There's an annual limit to the pension allowance. That's about 40,000. That used to start decreasing if you're earning more than 110,000. Now that top level has increased to 200,000. So if you are in the 100 to 200 or over 200,000 band in terms of how much money you take out of the business, then this is something that you need to look at in terms of how you want to make sure that you are under the limit for when the pension allowance starts tapering. The new limit is 200,000. And then finally, there's business rate discounts. If you have a retail property, then effectively you need to start looking at your business rates and going back to HMRC, having discussions on how can I claim the discount. There's an increase in the structures and building allowance. If someone has done works recently in their property, then this allowance is actually increased. So this could be a significant cut in the amount of tax that you're paying, corporation tax. HMRC has actively come back saying that there's going to be time to pay agreements which they will enter in with businesses. Where you feel that a VAT bill is coming up, a PAY bill is coming up, a corporation tax bill is coming up, make sure that you are picking up the phone and speaking to HMRC. They are a lot more open right now to delay payments. So you have to keep an eye on your cash flow, especially over the next 2 or 3 months. And a lot of our cash flow usually goes to HMRC. So if I have a big VAT bill pending, then I need to make sure that I have HMRC on my speed dial so I can have a time to pay agreement with them. And finally, this is not part of the budget, and they're only going to release details next week. But there is a funding scheme the government has called the Enterprise Finance Guarantee, in which where you don't have to put in personal guarantees or assets or business loans. You get the whole amount, 80% of the amount that you're borrowing from a bank, secured by the government. And usually the government was adding the banks used to add a 2% fee on top of whatever loan you're getting to ascribe to that enterprise finance guarantee scheme. They've changed it around now to the coronavirus business interruption scheme, and they've waived that 2% fee. So this is really a time to go back to your banks and start getting facilities in place, making sure that if you have loans, you could potentially even look at refinancing the loans. So again, just a lot of the things that I'm talking about are really cash flow focused, not just P&L. So you have to think through your cash flow and say, well, where can I delay my payments, or where can I start making sure that I have more funds available in case this continues for 2 months, 3 months, etc. So just a few quick points. Again, if anyone has anything on the budget, just put it in your comments and we'll pick it up and talk through it again.
All right, so let's move to then related business matters. And again, as I said, it's a checklist. So looking at the business side of things, and as I said, it's more of a checklist. I'm sure you've thought about all these things, but let's just go through this, okay? So the first thing that we're looking at is the business and the team side of things. So what you have to do now is to literally think about the business continuity plan. Just in case there is a disruption, then how you're going to respond. And going back to what Clive Woodward, the ex-coach of rugby team, has said, that it's all about thinking correctly under pressure. And that's your teacup moment. Now, there are triggers happening and they are rapidly happening. And how do you respond versus how you react? That can make a huge difference. So it's about thinking through the scenarios. What can potentially go wrong in the business? And therefore, then what will we do? And hopefully nothing goes wrong, right? So that's what we are all hoping and trying to achieve. So scenarios, like, I'm just talking about some scenarios, and look, I'm aware that there are multiple businesses on the call right now and each business model is different. So just go through it and say, okay, am I prepared? Does my senior management team know about this? So for example, if someone has some individual gets the symptoms and is in the office and says, okay, I'm feeling this kind of stuff, what do you do? I'm sure you're aware of them calling on 111 and doctor's note policy, and also what is the statutory sick pay. There apparently is some confusion around, whether it's statutory sick pay or is it statutory pay. Just make sure that your people are very aware of it, and also you should know how to respond if someone is complaining of some health matters. Also, if an individual is tested virus positive, and they have been in the office, say, yesterday, then how are you going to respond? The entire team, will they get to know what happens if it's a branch and you're kind of, for example, delivering or installing stuff? Then what's your communication going to be and what's your action going to be? Does that mean that the branch is shut down? Does that mean the entire office is shut down? Does the deep cleaning is required? Recently, it was like virus stays for around 3 to 4 hours on hard surface, but apparently now the research is showing it can last from 3 hours to 3 days. So then what really happens in that period? So again, look, as I said, each business is different on the call, and you have to therefore think, am I prepared for that situation? Do I know what communication will go out, or what am I going to do? How will the deliveries happen, or which team or people I'm going to parachute into that unit to just make sure that the business is continuing? So it's all about scenario planning right now. Also, as I did talk about earlier, it's making sure that there is social distancing happening. And I know for some of the businesses, sitting at home is not an option, especially if you're not a service business. So how can we implement staggered work hours or some kind of, maybe shifts, just to make sure that business is as usual, right? Also, again, for some of you, I know that you are ready to work from home or your team to work from home, but there has not been a real testing of home working infrastructure. And trust me on this one, because we have been doing this since, I think, for the last 10 days now, is that when your people go and work from home, their knowledge with or comfort with technology is so different. It varies so much. Just making sure that they have the fundamentals in place and they know how to go about technology. You have to test that while you have the option. Once the options run out because someone has been tested positive, then it just leads to panic. And unfortunately, people and staff members and other players, they just panic. And that's not the best state to be in, because that time you're like, step one, step two, step three. This is what needs to happen because we've already thought about that scenario. Also, just making sure that right now you're looking at only critical hires and pay rises, if at all. But if you can hold off the hiring process, that's even better, because as Amol did talk about it, we don't know what's the time plan right now. Is it 2 months? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 months? Is it 1 year? We don't know. And still, I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, they're expecting to see some number drop in terms of the cases because of all these measures that are being put in place. And once that happens, hopefully there is more clarity emerging. Also, staff contingency planning. If some of your key players come down, then what is the backup plan? What is the succession plan? Who is going to come into their position and how things will continue? So it's all about business continuity plan. So right now you should be thinking, saying, have I thought about these scenarios? Have I thought about, what's going to be my backup plan? How am I going to respond when this situation happens? So that you as a leader is coming across in control, calm, and prepared for these situations. And also, I can't emphasize on this, your frequent communication, your frequent updates to your team, making sure that they understand the developments which are happening, because different people are consuming information in a different way. The same information has different impacts on different people. So you presenting a very objective picture, no rah-rah, no shebang, no underplaying, just the way it is right now. And I think leadership is also about being honest and transparent, and that's what's required. And you can only do that once you understand the situation. So I hope that gives you a little bit of like checklist in front of you to see, okay, am I really prepared? And if not, then please get on with it, because we still have a lot of window and time to actually do that. And you never know what future new norms of working actually emerge from these practices, just being open to the possible scenarios. As far as, so again, I'm looking at now business and from your client's point of view, just making sure that you are proactively communicating with clients. And again, I know there are different business models right now on this call, but your measures for health and what are you doing for business to make sure that you're supporting them in the best possible manner. For some of us, it's like literally delivery, door-to-door delivery. So what measures are you taking to make sure that your staff is protected and you're taking care of clients' premises and their health as well? Just as an example. So also, look, the second point, as you can see on the screen, is that be on top of your receivables. There's no two ways about it, that if you are not, then other people in the economy are under pressure. And most probably, all of us are feeling different kinds of pressures in different areas. So making sure that you're completely on top of your receivables. I've actually said this as a mandate to clients I'm speaking with, saying that every week, maybe twice in a week, you need to sit down with your finance person or you yourself or whoever that person is in charge of, and you have to review your receivables. If it's looking good in control, which at least I've seen that's the situation, because most of you have been very proactive, that's really fantastic. But keep an eye out, because as I said, balance sheet and your receivables, they are snapshot, what's happening in that moment. And just one date, end of the month, start of the month, the situation can look very different. So being totally on top and aware of it is absolutely required. Not once a month, it's once in a week at least. Also, if you have to, then pay settlement discounts. Even if they're delaying the payment, pay some settlement discounts to collect the money. Because, and you might say, sure, that's not required because I've got a lot of cash sitting in my bank. That's fine, but we just want to make sure that our cash reserves are intact, and ideally they are growing. So whatever you can do to bring money back in, that's better before it turns into bad debt. And you never know when what turns into bad debt. as I've already covered, it's on a weekly basis. You need to review this. And also the final point here on clients front is, as I said, look, we all are in a similar situation, maybe not same, but similar situation. So we are all trying to figure it out. We are all trying to come out of it strong and, surviving and hopefully thriving in this current situation. So and generally what I've seen is that when this situation happens, people go into some kind of a crazy overdrive and panic, and they turn inwards, and it's just a wrong way of thinking. So you have to turn outward. You have to look at your customers, your clients, and say, okay, what can we do with compassion, with care, with commitment? Because as I said, this will clear up. There's no two ways about it. It will clear up. And when it clears up, you want to protect, you want to come out of it with protected relationships, those bits intact, that goodwill being intact. And that's what you have to remember. Being human, actually, yes, you have to protect yourself, but at the same time, have that compassion and make sure you're not just inward, but actually also taking care of the community and customers around you. Absolutely important. And I think I always say this, this is the time when of crisis or pressure, when actually the characters come out. You really see the characters of people. What are they made of? And it's really interesting to watch the behaviors of human beings who you thought are something, and they turn out to be completely different, good or bad, either ways. So watch your behaviors and your own reactions and responses. Moving on to your suppliers. So if you think about it, what I'm really doing it, looking at your team, then I'm looking at your customers, then I'm looking at your suppliers and creditors, and then we'll talk about business from the reports point of view, P&L and balance sheet. But as far as your, say, suppliers are concerned, I would highly recommend, where it's relevant and you know what's the relevance of your suppliers, is that right, and speak to them and ask them what measures they are undertaking. For some of us who are in product business, where you need to have some hardware or products, you want to check what are they doing about their logistics, about their supply chain. And also, please review your key products and check for each of your key products whether there is a reliance on one supplier, or do you have any alternatives. Do you need to look at alternative products or brands or suppliers, or different channels? But identify your backup option. Right now, everything might be looking good. You might think that, oh yeah, this is my biggest supplier and very well established. The bigger they are, the harder sometimes companies fall. So you just want to make sure that you have plan B. That's it. And right now, hopefully plan A will work, but what's your plan B, especially for your key products? You want to be absolutely on top of that. And remember, people are seeking business, so they will be very welcoming if you reach out to some alternative suppliers and just checking, what is it that they have in place and what can they extend to you. Also, I have had these discussions with some clients, but again, just to remind you, stock up on your key items. Your products that you're selling, just make sure that you have enough inventory or stock with yourselves, obviously, ideally, and actually without cash outflow. So you want to negotiate with your suppliers, you want to get the right kind of credit terms. And yes, it's sitting in their warehouse, it might as well sit with their customers. It's better for them because then there are chances of that being sold. But you don't want to be having any cash outflow. At the same time, you want to stock up on your key items. It's all supply, demand, and the price movements, and therefore you want to make sure you have got the supply of those items. I still interact with people who are saying, oh yeah, I've got stuff for a couple of weeks or for a month or for 2 months, and I'm saying, whatever timeline you've been operating with your stock days, say for 30 days or for 2 weeks, just go times 3. Think like that, and you're not, as I'm saying again and again, without cash outflow. So you just want to sit with stock and really negotiate good credit terms with your suppliers. Also, as Amol did mention about the HMRC, or looking at your key suppliers. So generally, rent, HMRC, and salaries, these are the big ones if you think about it. Salaries we can't do much about. At least we can protect the future outflow. As far as your rent, if it's really a big outflow in your case, even if you don't need it right now, even if you're okay to pay that rent for the next couple of months or for the entire year, go back and negotiate, because whatever you can create liquidity with, it's a good move to do that. And also HMRC, time to pay. As I said, even if you don't need it, negotiate and get that liquidity for yourself. So these are the action points that you should be paying attention and making notes and saying, yeah, I need to do this, or who do I need to delegate to get this moving forward. Now, moving on, and again, looking at, so I've covered the key people who are there in your circle of influence. And talking about now literally the business financials, P&L and balance sheet. As you would see, I'm not talking about P&L here, and this is another distinction that you need to make as business owners and leaders is right now balance sheet is a bigger and more important report to focus on for yourself. And I know most of the business owners are very comfortable with P&L, the sales and margin and all that bit overheads, but balance sheet is not generally looked at. Now, cash flow basically get impacted because of the items which are sitting in the balance on the balance sheet. So just some pointers there for you. As Amol did talk about it, apply for government loans and grants even if you don't need it. Because of the way the interest rates are, it makes sense for you to have that liquidity, because we don't know what's the span of this situation or how long the social distancing and therefore the potential disruption in the workflow and productivity will happen. So make sure you have liquidity. The second thing is, and I know some of you have done that restructure your short-term loans into long-term, which is just you're just extending the payment plan, right? So you want to make sure you have liquidity in the short term. Also, no capital expenditures for the time being. If you've been thinking of investing in some machinery or some kind of in property, or I wouldn't say property actually, I would kind of ring fence that because that's a personal decision there. But anything where investments are required in a big way, capital expenditures, try to hold that off for the time being, unless you're getting a super good deal with no cash down and you can have that on upfront. If that's the case, great. But capital expenditure as a no outflow of cash, that's my main focus. Also, as I've already talked about, keep debtors in control. And with your creditors, again, look at your big creditors and see if you can have some kind of a payment plan with them. Till the time you communicate and have payment plan, they're absolutely fine. I'm not talking about defaulting at all, but see if you can extend those payment plans. And it's a good idea for you right now to look at your how frequently and how soon you're paying your creditors versus how you're paying your debtors. And actually, you want to have your debtors coming in quick and your creditors see what you can extend in a practical way. Idea is not to screw the happiness of other people, but as I'm saying, it's just about being prudent and not being the bank for other people while you're just putting ticks in the boxes because someone sitting in finance just wants to feel good that they are doing their job while they're working from home. You just need to make sure that the numbers are moving in the right direction. Also, as again, Amol did refer, speak to your bank to have loan lines, whatever you can get, credit lines, speak to them. And also, I can't emphasize more on this, and you will see all of us focusing on this with you, your 13-week cash flow projections. And whatever projections you had last week, trust me, it has already become defunct. We need to, every week, we need to update this and just make sure. And for some of you, if you can do your projections for 6 months, at least at a broad level, do that. And it's good to go conservative right now and then see what's the bottom line that's required. And as I said, I would much rather be prepared for that and then have the action in place versus being overly optimistic or just optimistic. So as I said, we will be focusing on that big time just to make sure you have clear business optics and the right kind of decisions are being made. Because people who don't have optics right now, who are going intuitive and gut-based, they might get it right. But trust me, when they get it wrong, and especially in this constantly changing environment, it's going to be super harsh for them. So just being more prudent is what we're looking at. In terms of the P&L, what again, few reminders here for you. And sometimes, as I said, people forget about this because it's all panic and somehow it's like just holding on to it. But I know that some of the clients, they've already reviewed their pricing norms and their discounting norms. In fact, some really nice firm messages have gone out to the team members, reminding them not to discount, especially in their case, for example, if they can afford to do that, and hold on to their prices. And some of you have already taken corrective price you've implemented corrective prices in your business, which is really good. Because remember, going back to the fundamentals, this is one of the areas or changes that you can make which makes a hell of a difference to on the bottom line. So being mindful of acres of diamond, saying it's there, already there with me, and what are the things that I can do which is right in my backyard versus worrying about what I can't really control or influence. So this is one of the measures if it's relevant in your case. Again, can't emphasize more, retention of clients is the key. And again, just monitoring your top clients who are contributing to the bulk of your revenue and being in touch with them to be in to support them, see how you can help them, what's going on in their space, being absolutely aware versus head in the sand and saying, hopefully I won't hear from them and that's all fine. Don't worry, embrace it. You be the one reaching out and telling them about the measures that you are taking, and ask them, what else would you want us to do to support you? Because as I said, this will clear up, and these relationships you want to make sure that you maintain and come out of it strong. Also, again, only urgent and important investments, that's what you want to be looking at. No unnecessary or kind of random bits which are happening just because, yeah, we are okay cash wise, we have got lots of money in the bank. You want to protect that, preserve that, and you want to generate more money. That's what your objective is. So again, very fundamental, but just good reminders as to the question that you have to be asking when I'm sharing these things with you is that, okay, I get it, what am I doing about this right now? Okay, is this relevant in my case? No. Really, is this not relevant? Slow down when you say it's not relevant and say, okay, yeah, actually, yeah, what am I doing here? What do I need to do with my team? How do we need to align ourselves on this? So it's the preemptive and proactive thinking. That's what's required right now. Um, and yeah, just remembering that everybody is in a similar situation. So now how you respond in these times to these triggers is the distinction between others and you, or businesses that will survive and do well. So that's on your financial reports. I'm also talking about the growth. And as I'm saying again and again, your mindset cannot be that I'm just sitting there and hoping this will pass. Sometimes for some very rare business models, it does make sense to not do anything and to just wait to weather the storm. But for most of us, and because I've reviewed the models, obviously of clients and of yours, it makes sense for us to keep up with our activities of growth. And again, it's just maintaining your, and I've used these words consciously, tested and measured sales and marketing activities. This is not the time to say, oh, I've never done Google ads, let me try Google ads. Of course, I might be sounding a little kind of flippant, but trust me, don't do anything which you've not tested and measured. We want to focus on our core tested and measured sales and marketing activities, the fundamental ones, and really, really doing well there and keeping an eye on the number of inquiries, what's your conversion. And yes, these numbers might get impacted. For some of us, they're like getting beautiful, couldn't be sweeter, and that's amazing. So managing that growth for you. And for some of us, it's like, okay, if it's dropping, then what do I need to do? What are the other things I need to do? It just means that the scale has to shift, right? That's what's required. And sometimes nothing is possible because that's how the market is behaving. Then fine, we'll talk more about that, what can be done in that situation. Also, guys, remember, because the landscape is shifting and the needs of your customers could be potentially changing, your initial script or proposition or your pitch might actually not be that relevant right now. So just being aware that your sales team or your customer service team, they are adapting their proposition. They are actually talking about the topical issues and therefore positioning our services in relation to that. You'll be surprised how many times people don't realize that they're still stuck in their old ways of doing things versus actually saying, yeah, I need to make it relevant and topical. And also make it easy for your buyers. Again, I know for some of us on the call, it's like the payment plans should have been in place because of the kind of products or services that we sell, or just saying, okay, these times, like especially hotels and all, they don't have any choice, right? You know what's happening in those industries of events and hotels, and people are like, fine, we'll offer you free cancellation. The course is happening end of the year or next year. Fine, this is what we have in place. If things don't improve or you can't attend, but make it easy for people to commit, or maybe it's a low deposit or whatever. So if not the next 2 to 3 months, then at least you're trying to build the pipeline for the following months and the following time period. So think about it, saying, how do I reduce the barriers for people to do business with me right now? How can I share that risk a little bit with them so they are actually encouraged to do something about it? So, and look, if you practically think about all the things that we have talked about so far, and I was actually reflecting on this, saying, new virus, new concerns, new opportunities. It's like whatever I'm talking about here and whatever we are doing in our own business here, there's nothing, as I said, rocket science or new or something that I wouldn't want to do even in the booming times, even in the amazing times. But what happens is, as very famously Warren Buffett, one of the top investors in the world, and I'm sure he's doing very well because of the stocks he invests in, is saying that it's like when the tide is high, everyone is swimming nice and happy. It's only when the tide goes low you realize who was swimming naked, and that's the time. But in terms of the good practices, in terms of doing these things, whether it's your debtors or your creditors, or how you should be marketing, or you should, the way you're looking at your P&L, everything is the fundamental of a good business. So this is the time when the models and your practices and your disciplines will get tested, the things that you've been doing and the things that you will be doing. So it doesn't matter what we have been doing, it's about what we need to do now is what you need to focus on. So that's the key thing to keep at the back of your mind. And for some of you who know me personally, you know that I will think about opportunities, because again, the way I believe about life is that whenever, especially business, is that whenever there is a variability, there is a change, there are some disruptions and there are some opportunities, and opportunities come from disruptions if you think about it. So it's about saying, okay, I get it. So this is what I can do right now for the current setup that I have. But then what is it that I'm not seeing? What are the blind spots? And literally the question for you is, what is it that I'm not seeing? And there are so many things you're not seeing right now because it's this focus. And I get it. I totally understand if that's what you're worrying about. But then you have to step back a little bit and look at the full picture and say, okay, what am I not seeing here? That's interesting. That's interesting, because this is not a week or a day phenomenon. It will last for a while, maybe for a few months or maybe for a year. I don't know. I'm not the expert, but I'm just saying it will give you opportunities. And one is the organic growth opportunities, because your competitors are in pressure if you are feeling the pressure. But if you are managing your cash, your liquidity, your profitability in a smart way, then you will survive longer. And if you're surviving longer and you're thriving, then yes, what can we do with those players in the market space? So let's talk about the inorganic way of growing, which again, I know that not very many of us are thinking right now, but you need to think. I will urge you to think, because growth is not just the organic growth. It's actually the fastest way to grow is inorganic. So just putting two things in front of you right now, and there are many more opportunities, but let's talk about the merger and acquisition opportunities. Now, look, when you look at the entire landscape, which is there in front of you, there is a possibility of horizontal integration, which means you can actually merge with businesses, similar businesses, which are there in your sector. And as I said, if you're feeling the pressure, they're also feeling the pressure. It could be at a different level altogether. Merging kind of protects the entities of these businesses, but allows you to have some synergies and allows you to have scale. And big is beautiful, especially in the SME times right now. So it's just about saying, okay, what are the opportunities? How do I reach out? What kind of coffee or chats I can have with these guys just to figure out how they are managing the situation, how we could potentially work together. And also, if you look at the vertical integration, you're basically saying, okay, I'm here, I've got my suppliers and I've got my clients here. That's vertical integration. Now, it could be that some of your suppliers are in pressure. So what could you potentially do with them? Is it possible to get some equity stake? If you look at some of your clients, potentially that they owe you a lot of money, could you convert some of that debt into equity? And these are some of these strategies, which exist out there, like D4E, literally debt for equity. And you can have arrangements where you're trying to work with them, resolve their situation, and later on you guys can sell the business or they can buy you out, or different ways of exiting. But there are financial tools, there are financial ways to actually identify, saying, are there more horizontal opportunities, more vertical opportunities, or completely a silo, a standalone opportunity where there's maybe, because of the way it is, that you can structure the deal in a way which is conducive for everyone involved without having some crazy outflow upfront, because this is not the times to look at that, but more kind of sustainability. So if you are not very comfortable with that, maybe this is a time to start thinking about it and start adapting and start having those conversations with us and with other people in your circle, and saying, okay, what kind of initial conversations I can have. Also, we were having a discussion, some of the clients, and saying that there will be some great rental opportunities that they will pick up. Office spaces, right? People who are on high street, what's happening with high street, but there's some businesses which are booming and they're on the call right now. So again, it's like, what could you be doing with those spaces? Because people will not be able to pay rent. How can you reach out to landlord? There are tools which you can identify the red flags, the credit issues, all that bit, so you are targeting the right kind of people. And it's just saying, but I've never done that before. Nice, interesting, right? New experience. Why would we not want to try something different? So again, just opening your mind to that, because as I've said, even in great times, the fastest way to grow, the fastest way to build up the scale, is in organic ways. And right now and in the next few months, trust me, the entire business landscape will be rife with those opportunities. You just need to keep your eyes and ears and mind open. Also, people who are in stock market, I mean, some of the amazing and some of the like gems right now are at their value levels, at their low levels. 20-25% market has dropped, and it's dropping. It's like, yeah, it's all kinds of things are happening. And in fact, Deutsche Bank Chief Investment Officer Christopher Nottling, he was having some discussion with the business owners, and he said right now what we are calling this is global health crisis. It's earlier, like in 2008, 2009, it was global financial crisis. This is the term that banks are using, which is GHC, and it's different because right now the markets are responding to what's happening at health level, and as soon as we have some signs of recovery or some measures, markets will respond, they will recover. So this is the time where things are in flux, things are changing. So if you are actively in stock market, it's about you deciding what your risk appetite is, what your liquidity is, and how you want to go about it. But whether it's fixed coupon bonds or stocks or REITs, there are so many tools. You just need to speak to people in this sector to help you out with the opportunities. So as I'm saying, I'm really hoping it's making you think slightly in a different way, and just saying, okay, what I need to do to protect what I have and to build on that asset. So look, now if for some of you, you might say, oh, but nothing I can do, Shweta, right now. It's just all kind of like just sit and wait and watch, and maybe the only thing I can do is to have a little bit more wine and whiskey and just watch Netflix. It's, as I said, it's your choice what you want to do at the end of the day. We can absolutely sit and binge watch and just drink ourselves to kind of complete distraction and escapism. Or if you can't do any of that, then yes, as I said, preserve what you have. But also there are so many strategic jabs you could be making. It's like jab, 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 and when the time comes, there's a proper right hook that's going to happen. And all the things that you've not found time to do, whether, oh, I need to sort out my database, I need to clean that. I mean, I've given you just a list of things which I could think of just from the common conversations that I have. Some of us have been thinking about the new products that we want to bring to the market space because they've got high margins and it creates another pillar to our base. This is a perfect time to work on those things, development side of things, your internal work, getting ready so we can actually, once it's recovered, we are out there and really being proactive. It's just being prepared, right? This is your preparation time as well. And this is a precious time because trust me, I promise you on that. There's so many people who are drinking themselves to stupor just to blank out, just to kind of somehow avoid. And it's like crazy wastage of time is happening. Build yourself, invest in yourself, actually prepare the business, and it will be ready to fight back if you are in a situation where you are undervalued, which I doubt that will be the case. But it's just about saying, it's okay, guys, let's do the best that we can absolutely do right now for ourselves. Which takes me to the leadership mindset. And people talk about there's so many articles which are floating right now saying it's 5 C's of leadership and it's like 7 S's of leadership and all that stuff. And you read this and you're like, yeah, I get all these sevens and fives and all that bit and 11 ways and I don't know. So look, my philosophy on leadership mindset is that the mindset that you need to really actively observe and manage is actually your own mindset. You have to actually learn to lead yourself in this time of opportunity, crazy growth, or crisis or pressure. Because I promise you, there are some businesses which are growing right now like mad, and they're like, oh my God, how do we just capture all of this? And trust me, they're not just your hand sanitizers and kind of soap businesses. There are many more outside of that. They are thriving and they're growing and amazing. So how do you capture that? How do you capitalize that? And there's some businesses who are solid fundamental businesses and they are watching the times because they know that they can see through this period while other people around them will fall, and they will pick them up in nice value deal ways. And then for some of us, it's like, okay, no, the business model is that we're really getting hammered, we're really getting impacted. It's okay. So let's see what I can really do in this situation, because it's the business model that's responding to these times, right? So now how you respond to that, how you manage yourself is the key. Because if you are faking it and you're trying to be the brave one and the bold one and you're shitting right now, it's not, people will sense it, they'll get it. So it's more spending time with yourself and actually saying, what's the worst that can happen? And I personally think that we are just panicking and reacting versus actually saying, let's really think about the downside. What's the worst that can happen? Let me really jot it down. Let me face it. Let me see it. And then there's not a single thing in your life that you've not dealt with. I mean, you are on this call right now because you've dealt with all kinds of stuff that has happened to you in your personal life, in your business life. So there's nothing that you won't be able to deal with. There are mechanisms for pretty much most of the things in life, right? So it's just, how are you managing your mindset right now? For me, that's the top focus, because if you are in a good position, strong position, you will be able to lead your team. If that's not the case, you're bullshitting yourself and you're bullshitting other people. It's just a matter of time before, everything starts crumbling. And it's okay. It takes practice. There are moments when we feel fearful. There are moments when you feel super stressed, but try to be resilient. Don't spend days and don't spend week feeling like that. Think about it. Say, okay, what's the evidence right now? Okay, what can I do in this situation? Which actually, again, takes me to the four styles of what I'm seeing right now, not just in our community, but even outside our community. And it's a fact. I mean, there are people who are like, we are fucked basically. We are screwed. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just waiting and watching. Yeah, sure. That's one way of going about it. Absolutely. And it's a choice that you make. Then there is second style, which I'm saying, which is like, let's hope for the best, guys. Come on, let's hope for the best. We are absolutely hopeful, and we're all kind of like, all positive, gung-ho, and just keeping our fingers crossed and, working with clenched bum, hoping things will be okay. And that's fine as well. It's a choice that you make. The third one that I'm seeing is, and this is what I'm seeing in our community right now a lot, which is optimism. And the definition of optimism is not saying let's hope for the best. Actually, the practical definition of optimism is when you actually think of all the negative scenarios, you prepare for the worst, and then you hope for the best. That's optimistic. Literally, that's the optimistic. And I'm really hoping that each one of us on the call at least is on stage 3 or the third style of our leadership and the way we are managing our mindset. And then the actually for me, this is the best, which is saying let's prepare for the worst and do our best. And there's a huge distinction between hoping for the best and doing our best possible. I'd also written two more words there, but I removed it because some of us might not get it when I say that, more from spirituality point of view, because I believe in that. So the two words that I had was expect nothing. Let's prepare for the worst, do our best, and expect nothing. Because as soon as we start craving, saying, oh, I really hope this changes or this becomes like this, or we start avoiding something because it's not feeling good, there is an oscillation in ourselves. We are off balance. We are craving for something or we are avoiding something. And I'm simply saying, let's think of the potential scenarios that might go wrong based on our intelligence, based on our wisdom. Let's prepare for those scenarios to protect our people, to protect the assets, and let's do the best that we can, because that's the reality and that's what we can actually influence. And then expect nothing. Flow with it. Accept it, embrace it. The more you resist, the more you try to fight back, the more you panic, it's not going to help you. It's not going to help people around you. It's not going to help your family, your loved ones. So it's just that style. And you have to check for yourself. And trust me, we all oscillate in all these four styles in a day, I promise you, especially in these times. But then where do you spend most of your time? That's the question here, really. Nobody's a Superman or a Superwoman. It's just, where are we spending most of our time genuinely in a very authentic way? Because as I said, these are the times when the character reveals itself, and you will surprise yourself what you thought of yourself versus what you actually are made of. So it's a testing time in good ways, actually. That's how I see it. And again, you might have come across this, Stephen Covey's very famous book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And people who have not seen this, just to remind you, and people who have seen this, again, to remind you and bring it on your radar with your team, with your customers, with your suppliers, with your business, with your family, everything, with yourself, is that there are two circles that we're facing right now, each one of us on the call. One is the circle of influence, the other one is circle of concern. As you can imagine, right now, our circle of concern is so much. Every moment we are on the news channel, we are checking our social media, what's happening, what's the new development, how many people have died. The circle of concern is so big right now, and it psychologically makes us feel as if our circle of influence is shrinking. but actually people who are proactive, people who are taking it, by the horns, this bull by the horns, is like, look, I know there's a circle of concern. Yes, I've consumed so much of social media information. I need to keep myself updated and educated, absolutely, but let me see what can I influence. And they are consciously trying to increase the circle of their influence. And trust me, however bad or good the situation is, there's always something that you can do to make it better. It's just the approach, it's just the way of life, it's just the philosophy that you choose to have for yourself. So keep this at the back of your mind, because every time you react something, or you react to something, or you feel in a certain way, ask yourself saying, am I reacting to my circle of concern, or am I really focusing right now on my circle of influence? What can I do? And trust me, sometimes you won't be able to do anything, because that's how the situation is. It's okay, but at least whatever you could do, you've thought about it. Okay. And every time you feel kind of like, oh, it's a hopeless situation, you're so kind of screwed, I assure you, just think of the overall economy, and people are in similar situation, majority of them. So now, if you could be a better one in terms of your strength here, mental strength, it just gives you an edge. It just gives you an edge. And you wanting that edge over yourself, actually, that's the most important thing. And also, look, and again, I'm just sharing this, and I don't know, I really hope you see what I'm trying to show you here in the right way. Some of you might be like, what the fuck was that? But I will still show it to you, because it's like, I'm speaking to clients, I'm speaking to our friends, and I've got my own family. And sometimes, as I said, we have to step back. We have to step back to understand that business is not the entire life. This is just a wheel of life, the different parts that comprise our living and our making and our growth, our health, family, relationships, our own attitude, our business, finance, social life. They are all part of what we are. And it's not just one thing. And right now, that one finance or business thing is becoming the overarching factor, which I understand why it's becoming, but it's again you putting the perspective back into the mix and saying, actually, it's just one of the elements, not the entire element. Till the time we are intact as a family, our health is good. I have something, in terms of relying on, I'm focused on my personal growth, my attitude is right. Yeah, majority of those elements are in place. And then it's a matter of time before these things sort out and things clear up. So just reminding you of this. And therefore, if you have time, then guys, whatever you have been saying to yourself for so long, saying, oh, I just wish I find time to read more books, or to write that book that I've been wanting to, or just kind of like, maybe I need to, just so busy to call my parents or my friends, whatever that is, look, whatever floats your boat, whatever gives you that sense of life is what I'm saying, sense of living, and just makes you feel a little bit more balanced and centers you, whatever that is, whether it's meditation or exercise. Right now, your exercise is so critical. I can't emphasize meditation, exercise. There is a scientific reason behind it. And as I said, it just helps you also balance yourself, center yourself. Being all over the place, being like, oh, panic and collusion and talking to people all the time in that manner doesn't help anyone. So just centering yourself is so important. So look, spending time with your kids, playing games versus just binge watching or whatever, wasting time. Make use of time. It's an opportunity. You have to see it like this, and it will pass. This will also pass. I promise. You know that. So just remind of the life and remind yourself of the fundamentals. And this is one of the quotes we love as a family. And I can't even try to speak the way Bruce Lee would kind of deliver this statement, but it's right in front of you. But don't get set into one form. Adapt it and build your own, and let it grow. Be like water. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. So this is my core message to you. We will be keeping you updated as and when the developments are happening in the business world, in the economy, in the financial world. Again, reach out to us, because this is what we do day in and day out. There are so many other things, and it's all situational. I get it. It's all business based. Whether it's opportunities, whether there are pressure points, make sure you're reaching out for help, because there's a full team that's backing you up. There's a full community that's backing you up. And this is the time when you need more of that support. This is a time when you need to make sure you're not having any blind spot. You're not missing out something which you shouldn't be missing out. And you're on top of your game. So as I said, we'll absolutely keep you posted, updated, whether through emails or through such trainings or one-to-ones. But stay in top form. Make sure you lead authentically and you lead yourself first in the best possible manner. So I'll just go back to the questions at this point. I'm very aware of time. It's 10:17 right now. So I'll just check the questions. So team, you're on the call. If you could just take charge of that, that would be brilliant. Just to see if there are any burning questions. So if it's okay for people who can't stay on the call, please feel free to get off the call. And the call is being recorded, so you can come back to it later on. But I think I'll spend another 10 minutes just to see if there are any burning thoughts or questions or any value adds, which I can potentially share with you. Also, before you get off the call, just to make sure that we are tuned into what's working for you and what you got out of this discussion, if you could just jot down saying my top takeaway has been this, or action point for me is this, it just helps us have feedback and provide you with that support even more. So just if you could do that, that'll be brilliant. Any questions? So Amol, Tariq, DJ, Jamie, can you guys help me with the questions, please? So it's a great question, how to ensure that all staff are productive when working at home. So guys, all the clients for whom the team members are working from home, like home working team, what are you doing to make sure that people are being productive when they are working from home? On this, Amol, do you want to contribute on this?
We have a document that we've not created. We've sourced it from the web, and I'm going to put it on the academy along with this presentation. So that just talks through what the manager needs to do, ideally, what the team needs to do, how they need to set it up. This is a learning period for everyone because usually very few teams have worked in this way, where everyone's working off-site and everything is happening online. So because it's a learning period, it's actually a good time to get everyone to educate themselves and educate yourself. Spend a little bit more time on finding good content on how work online happens. So I'm not going to give multiple ideas right now because the document is quite reasonably comprehensive. But I know there's a few clients of ours also who work from home quite a bit. So if you have anything, so if any other client has stuff, if you just send it over to us, we'll make sure that it's all uploaded on the academy by the in the next today or tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amol. Absolutely. But again, Lisa, in your mind, you should be like treating it as business as usual. So again, whether it's your reporting, whether it's your meetings, whether it's them logging in, informing the entire team. And as Amol said, the document is quite comprehensive. So that will give you ideas. But as I said, it's more the mindset saying, yeah, things are working as usual. And we just need to adapt a little bit to make sure there's a good flow of work happening. Also, just another reminder to people, because of the so-called cancellations happening, right? So it's like, oh, let's cancel the meeting because of this coronavirus. No. In your mind, business as usual. We're doing the meeting. Let's figure out whether it's Zoom or it's Skype. And it's interesting to watch people think, yeah, let's just cancel it till April. Why? The work has to happen. So just so that you understand this, that look, actually, because of this global health crisis, the marketplace is getting impacted because of the social distancing, working from home, and therefore people don't want to have those contacts. And that's what's really creating pressure in the business sector and on SMEs, if you think about it. So wherever you can use technology to continue with work, please do that. And hopefully once, let's see when we clear this up, yeah, we can get back to normal. So sorry, I'm just looking at some other questions. So you've written here, Constant, you've said, thanks for the positive reinforcement. And it's just a reminder and reinforcement, absolutely, Constant. Where can we find more information on the finance side about R&D tax credit? Who do we need to work with? So if you could just drop a note, Constant, to Amol or to one of us, we'll then give you the exact details of the person you can reach out to. And again, for R&D, I'm sure you know, they don't charge you anything. It's only when you get the R&D tax credit, there's a fee that's involved. And yeah, the cash outflow happens. Okay, just looking at the questions. So, Richard, you're saying staff costs are a major cost. We are thinking of reducing these costs and asking staff to accept a salary reduction or unpaid time off. Absolutely, Richard. If you think that's what's required in the business, and I know for us, like for you, the logistics is all based in China, and there is an impact happening totally in the retail market suffering as well. So yes, whether it's salary reduction, unpaid time off, reduced working hours, whatever measures you can put in place, you will have to put that in place. And I'm sure team is also made of human beings, so they know what's happening and they will be supportive. So it's just trying to see through this period, basically. All right, just having a look. Sorry, Stephen, you've said you need to look at it as soon as possible. What exactly are you referencing? Maybe I missed out your comment. If you could just let me know. Rupert, you've written here, maybe think about what is your core activity and strength and what it is you can do for your community, your staff, clients, suppliers, where you live. We are health economists, so we are thinking about how we can help directly, but everyone has something they can do to reach out and make a difference to the people they serve. Thank you so much, Rupert. That's a great message, and I've just shared this with everyone. We're all in this together. And we just need to make sure that we all come out of it in a strong way together. So, which is what the compassion and thinking outward and saying, what could you do, even if you're sitting at home and you've self-isolated or you're working from home, what could you do to people who are a little bit more vulnerable than you are, or who are in not as strong position as you are? Life is all relative. It's all relative. You might be feeling, oh my God, this is my world, what's happening? But there are people in a much worse off situation. And then people who are strong, better situation. And we want to aspire to that, but then have gratitude for knowing that today we are okay. We are as a family together. Our health is okay. We are taking our breaths, all those things. I mean, life is so relative. So just reminding ourselves of seeing how we can do something for others while we're also taking care of ourselves. So thank you for that great reminder, Rupert. Absolutely. So guys, I'm just looking at, Andrew, you've asked, how does the coronavirus business interruption scheme work? So, Amol, do you have, can you add more to that, please?
So quickly, they've not given the details yet. They announced it in the budget. The details are going to come out next week. So it is going to be called the coronavirus business business scheme. It replaces what used to be called the enterprise finance guarantee scheme. It's run by one mediator bank, but then all the big banks will be offering exactly the same, and they'll give you specific details of it. Hopefully, it'll be in the news next week.
Perfect. Thanks, Amol. And also they are announcing more economic measures, literally. I mean, it's been in the news since yesterday. So keep an eye out, just pay attention to that. And as I said, if we need more updates, we'll be doing more of these calls just to make sure we're completely on top of things. Also, Greg, you've written here, remind people, because you're in IT. So again, just a message from Greg that remind people that self-isolating and the times we all are facing can be stressful and lonely, and especially for extroverts, right? I mean, there's such interesting comparisons happening, how introverts are taking working from home versus extroverts. So it can be very stressful and lonely. And so keep in touch with your colleagues, friends, and family. Make sure you have your WhatsApp group or your team or different kind of platforms that you're comfortable with, and make the technology work for yourselves. We all used to work from home, so help you stay in touch with your loved ones as well. Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Greg, for that message. And a great reminder again. Sorry, you've asked a question here, Niels. Sorry, before that, Ahmed, you've written here, let us prepare for the worst and do our best. My takeaway is expect nothing. Yeah, that's a good state to be in, and then flow with it, right? Neil, you've written here, my tenant runs events and transfer business for holiday clients. They have shut up shop as we have, but they are my tenants and I rely on their rental income. They cannot pay. What should I offer them? Postpone rent or let them not pay for few months? So again, Neil, this is a great question. So look, if they cannot pay, they're not going to pay, right? They're going to default, and there's not much that you can do other than obviously kicking them out and trying to bring someone in. But that might not be the best thing to do right now in terms of being supportive. So as I did talk about, one of these strategies very kind of quickly is debt for equity. Now you've just written that your tenant, they run events and transfer business. So it could be that you translate that rental debt into some shape or form of equity in their business, which as times improve, they can either buy you out at obviously the new value, or you guys could be business partners, you being the minority shareholder, but with your proper rights and everything in that. So again, it's a great opportunity right now to say, it's okay, rental will kind of reinstate, but I can actually translate that rental debt into equity in this tenant's business if they are open and willing to do that. So it's just about thinking little lateral and actually not even thinking out of box. I would suggest don't have a box in these times. Just don't have a box. Just think lateral, okay? That's what I would recommend. So if you need more kind of information on that, put some thoughts together and we can spend a little bit more time on that as to how it could be designed. Okay. All right. There was a question that has been answered. Okay, that's awesome. So I think I've gone through the questions because I know the team is also answering when they're super technical questions. All right, so guys, look, I hope this was of use and it gave you some reminders, some validations, some new ideas and reinforcement. I like that word. But make sure you lead yourself strongly, you lead people around you very strongly and think outward and think lateral. And make sure you are on top of your business optics. We're here to back you up and just make sure you are focused on growth because that's the mindset you want to have, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And there are enough opportunities. You only need to look out for them. On that note, have a fantastic week. We will be in touch. Take care of yourself, be safe, and be strong.